Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Please sit down. It's been a long trip, isn't it?
Yeah. It's been very nice so far.
Yeah, it was very nice.
Yeah.
The first time you've been here in Spain?
It is, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm very worried now about you. It's your life. For me, your life is very important. Okay?
Yeah.
Right. I hope for you, is it important, your life?
Yeah, of course.
Yes? Okay. When did you start using drugs?
Well, does that include alcohol?
No.
Yeah. Probably I first got drunk when I was 11 and I was drinking sort of regularly bottles of sherry and stuff from that time. When I left
It was said that this treatment was technically impossible. Why? Because withdrawal couldn't take place in such a short period of time. When something new appears, there is a kind of reaction to it. And it's usually a negative reaction. It's a resistance. This is very well known, resistance to change. Anyway, what I was experiencing is that my patients were having a benefit, huge benefit from the treatment. People who could not give up drugs were giving up drugs. People who had been on drugs for a very long time, they were drug-free in just one day.
Dr. Lagarde claims a success rate of over 70% of his patients still drug-free after 6 months. This is almost twice as good as the standard British methadone detox. But for Val, things don't get off to the best possible start. Years of injecting have destroyed most of her larger veins. This means that a routine blood test becomes a painful procedure.
Well, this thing here, this is what the colonic irrigation turned out to be. And it's a do-it-yourself enema. I'm sure this isn't what they have in California, but I was actually given the option of having the nurse do it for me, but I drew the line at that.
That's okay? Very wonderful patient. Yes? Okay. You know that you're going to be about 7 hours, 6 hours, 7 hours. But at the very end, you're going to be...
I feel quite anxious about it, actually. But providing I'm not suffering too much, then it'll be a good thing, it'll be a positive thing. But I'll only know that after I've had my treatment, really.
Riders on the storm. You gotta know your man. Take him while you can.
The principal agent in accelerating withdrawal is the drug naltrexone. When it's introduced intravenously, the patients usually experience some contractions, so their wrists are tied to the bed to prevent injury. The use of anesthesia inevitably introduces a risk of complications. A nasogastric tube minimizes the risk of vomiting and asphyxiation.
Ruppert has been under sedation for 5 hours, okay? Once he was sedated, we started using an opiate antagonist. This opiate antagonist enters the body, the central nervous system, goes to the receptors in the brain and the nervous system, and pushes out the opiates, in this case the methadone. He's been trying to give up drugs for a long time. Now he's done it, he's finished. No, he has not suffered, and he would not suffer anything Now, this is an advantage, because if we were trying to do detoxification as an outpatient, he probably would have failed. He would not have even approached a treatment center to give up drugs. She's making some contractions, small contractions, which is not very important. Obviously, if she was not sedated, I mean, she would have been a very, very difficult case to do. And probably with in fact, she hasn't approached any treatment center to detoxify, really. Every time she tries, she backs off, and she starts using methadone again, because she feels all the pain.
Can you switch on the light there, please? How are you?
Not too bad. I've got rid of a stomach ache.
Stomach ache?
Yeah, I've been to the
loo, yeah?
times.
But did you manage to sleep anything?
Yeah, bits and pieces.
Bits and pieces?
Yeah, I woke up a few times.
Val has had an unhappy morning, with serious vomiting and diarrhea. Symptoms you would expect to find during a bad withdrawal.
Did they give you the medication to take to treatment? Which one did they give you?
After they've been detoxified, Ruppert and Val must take small daily doses of naltrexone for 6 months.
Just what Dr. Lagarde ordered.
This ensures that even if in a moment of weakness they do take heroin or methadone, the drugs will have no effect on them.
That's the first and last time I'll ever do that on television.
At the end of the first morning, Ruppert is well enough to return to his hotel. But Val is still very sick and has to stay in hospital. The following day, she's still symptomatic, with more vomiting and diarrhea.
We have to expect some changes. We have to expect some fear. Because even if she didn't want, her body has changed a lot. But is she having withdrawal? But I don't think so. I don't think so. If you ask her, she would not identify as withdrawal.
You feel quite ill.
Yeah.
What do you mean by ill?
Just stomach pain, feeling sick, feeling weak.
So how is that? How did your body and your face look so good? Tell me.
I don't know.
Why is it you don't want to look in the mirror? Why not?
I don't want to, I just haven't.
But I've mentioned to you like 2 or 3 times. Why haven't you looked in the mirror?
I don't know. I don't know, I feel too sort of woozy and sort of not quite there to answer these questions, you know?
Val returns to her hotel later the same afternoon. Although she's still feeling sick, she decides to fly home the following day. In London, at the Maudsley Hospital, Professor Strang is discussing the possibility of offering a version of Dr. Lagarde's treatment on the NHS.
Things we needed to get clear in our minds were which bits of the package that Juan's used and others have used are actually new. It's difficult to see how just another detox method could lead to such a fundamental change in the aftercare and people's subsequent relapse rates. At best, you'd presume there was a similar relapse rate. There is the world of difference between returning to a sunny village outside Seville with strong family units supporting you through your change and returning to a lonely flat in a housing estate in South London.
When I woke up in the hospital, I felt quite ill. I was coughing up blood and all sorts of things. And I was quite sick, vomiting in that. The nurses there gave me some my first dose of naltrexone, and within about 10 minutes, I felt like I was in the worst state of withdrawal I'd ever been in before, you know? I was told I'd feel like a new person. Well, I suppose I did feel different, but not in a positive way at the time.
Part of what was having to look at is whether this is really shortening the withdrawal syndrome. At least one possibility has to be that people are having unmodified cold turkey detox, and that what is happening is that the top edge of the detox is being blunted by an anaesthetic over that particular period. Now, that might still be well worthy of study as a different way of doing a detox, but it's less revolutionary in scientific terms. It's essentially a slightly more compassionate way of doing cold turkey.
I've had about 4 years experience, 2.5, 3-ish years of assisting a studio photographer. I spent a year in a black and white darkroom.
There's no doubt that during that 8 hours, something happened in the chemistry of my body, which has allowed me to come out of it with all the withdrawals having already occurred. You know, so in a way, it's an 8-hour detox rather than doing 6 or 7 weeks of crawling up the wall and, you know, tearing your hair out.
I think running a good detoxification service is very similar to running a good family planning service. You must offer a range of techniques to suit the tastes and the fears and perhaps even the pockets of patients. And offering naltrexone detoxification with general anesthetic or heavy sedation should be part of the package, part of the menu. Not everyone will like it, but a lot of people clearly do. And not to offer it, I think, is to deny to patients who would like to detox the possibility of detoxing.
Two months after returning from Spain, Val's application for a housing transfer to the West Country has come through. She and Robin have just moved into a flat in Devon.
When we first got back from Spain, the first week I'd say was pretty tough, really, being sick and that sort of thing. I felt ill, but not in the way I'd feel ill from withdrawing from heroin. It was more like a gastric flu sort of feeling or bug, you know. I didn't feel the need to go out and take any substitute like methadone or heroin or anything like that. I felt good about the treatment straight away, really, although I was ill.
Come on, Val.
Wake up.
Wake up, Val. Don't be silly when you go to sleep.
You're waking me up, then. Look, you're getting soaked. I have since been offered heroin. Although, strangely enough, I'm not tempted at all to take heroin. I don't feel any need at all, or any. It has no allure for me anymore. You know, it's just something I've done, and I don't want to do anymore.
I feel 100%, you know, I feel if something really bad happened to me tomorrow that would be difficult for me to deal with, say someone getting ill or some emotional upheaval, losing someone close, I feel like I could deal with something really quite difficult tomorrow and not be at risk of having a relapse.
I know some people.
I hope I can concentrate on the job at hand.
I know how to make it go away. You see, I met a devil in Buena. And since I met the devil, I've been the same old low. And I feel alright, I have to tell ya. I think it's time for me to finally introduce you to the Buena, good.
My patients were having a benefit, huge benefit from the treatment. People who could not give up drugs were giving up drugs. People who had been on drugs for a very long time, they were drug-free in just one day.
Dr. Lagarde claims a success rate of over 70% of his patients.
It's your life. For me, your life is very important. Okay?
Yeah.
Right. I hope for you, is it important, your life?
Yeah, of course.
Yes? Okay. When did you start using drugs in general?
Well, does that include alcohol? Yeah. Probably I first got drunk when I was 11, and I was drinking sort of regularly, bottles of sherry and stuff from that time.
Patients still drug-free after 6 months. This is almost twice as good as the standard British methadone detox. But for Val, things don't get off to the best possible start. Years of injecting have destroyed most of her larger veins. This means that a routine blood test becomes a painful procedure.
It was said that this treatment was technically impossible. Why? Because withdrawal couldn't take place in such a short period of time. When something new appears, there is a kind of reaction to it. And it's usually a negative reaction. It's a resistance. This is very well known, resistance to change. Anyway, what I was experiencing is that...
Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Please sit down. It's been a long trip, isn't it?
Yeah. It's been very nice so far.
Yeah, it was very nice.
Yeah.
The first time you've been here in Spain?
It is, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm very worried now about you.